In this video, you are going to learn how to do the letter A in graffiti for beginners and go from something like this to this. Be sure to watch until the end of the video to find out how. The basic capital letter A is made up of 3 parts, and the lowercase is made up of 2. More later as to why this is important. But for now, all that you need to recognize is that this is the basic structure of the letter A. This is the letter that you are all familiar with. If we take rectangular bars and then box up those lines, you are left with your very basic letters. This is the foundation that you will be building upon in order to create a stylized letter. No matter how you distort the letter, it still must uphold this recognizable letter structure. Before we start breaking down the letter, there are a few different ways we can structure the letter A with it still being in its most simplest form. These are called variant structures. There are many more different ways to structure the letter A, but these are just some of the most common ways. As a beginner in graffiti, these structures will make the most immediate change to your letter A. Now, if we do the same thing and box up these lines and outline around the letter, we end up with the different forms of the letter A. Building upon and manipulating the bars of these structures will lead you to creating stylized letters. If you have little to no experience with graffiti, I recommend keeping all your bars that you use to build your letter A the same width. Practice and become familiar with all these structures on the screen. With time and practice, those previous forms will slowly develop into letters like these. Now that you know how the basic letter is made and some different structures, it's time to understand the next step. Letters are made up of parts joining together, which is what you learn when you first start writing English. With graffiti letters, these parts are distorted, broken, bent, and warped in many different ways. Look at how the basic rectangles that make up the letter A can be changed. These are the shapes that are used throughout some of my letter A styles. Practicing basic shapes like this will lead you to understand how a piece letter is curated. Try playing around and developing some different types of bars you can use within your letters. Try adding curves, breaking your bars, making them larger in certain areas, taking off edges, adding little add-ons. These parts can then be assembled together to form your letter A. Now let's look at a simple letter progression using bars. Starting with the simple form. Notice how in the next letter all that is changed is a slight bend in both of the bars, with a slight taper out towards the bottom. Then, to take this one step further, I'm cutting away corners of the bars and adding additional parts. Also, I'm going to extend the middle bar of the letter, which is a natural extension. Don't rush this progression of your bars. Keep it simple first, and then slowly work your way up to more intricate styles. Now, with all that knowledge you now have about shapes and bars to create the letter, all that is left is to experiment. Keep what works and get rid of what doesn't. There is a lot of repetition and trial and error involved with coming up with new styles for your letters. Just remember to uphold that letter structure for whichever variant you choose, as there are no rules or limitation as to what you can create as long as you do so. Now I'm going to take you through the process of designing a letter from scratch. I'm going to start off with my first bar here on a slight angle, which will be the start of my letter. This rectangle is slightly tapered towards the top, fanning out at the bottom. I'm going to do the same for the second bar of the letter, but this time I'm going to extend it further as the whole letter is tilting to the left. It's almost like the two parts of the letter are leaning up against each other. Then the final piece. The crossbar will be positioned in the upper portion. I'm going to have this be quite skinny compared to the rest of the bars, and I'm going to have it extend naturally out to the left side. Now I have all 3 basic shapes creating the foundation of my letter. But aren't the 2 bars that were drawn meant to meet at the top? They don't have to. If I extend the boxes, they line up together at the top, which means they are suggesting the structure of the letter. When I go for my outline, the top left corner of the right bar will be joined where it meets the left side. Now, I'm going to go ahead and add some serifs to the end of my bars to add character. You can do so to your letter by simply adding a rectangle to the side of your letter, and then carving out parts like shown in the right-hand corner. This is the easiest way you can add extra styles to your letters. And if you are extremely new to graffiti, this is what I suggest you practice in combination with your simple letters. Notice how I'm just building upon shapes with more shapes. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on post notifications so you never miss out on a single upload. On the right leg on the bottom, I'm adding an almost triangular-based shape to add some more character to the letter. I'm following the same sort of ideas as before. Now I'm just adding some extensions to the letter to fill space. If you are a beginner, I suggest not adding anything extra into your letters and just focus on basic shapes. I know you see an arrow. I don't ever recommend adding arrows onto your letters, especially if you are a beginner. I believe they are quite cliché. I've added one in this instance to show how you can balance the weight of your letter using extensions, which is another topic for another day. Letters look way better when you are just focused on the structure itself. Now I'm just seeing what else I can add to the letter. In this case, I'm going to add some gaps in the bars on both sides. You can add this to your letter as long as it doesn't disturb the structure of the letter A. Simply just draw 2 lines running through the bars to do so, and you will outline around these to create the spacing in the letter. A tutorial for different letter effects will be posted on the channel in the near future. I'm pretty much finished with my letter. All that I'm doing now is scanning for areas that I don't like. In this case, I'm pretty happy with the sketch. The only thing I will change is the bottom right corner of the letter. Lastly, I'm just going to add some exterior details around my letter A, and then it's time to move on to the next step. Now, I'm moving on to the outline of my letter. This is where it comes to life. The width of your outline that you use can really make a big difference in the overall outcome of the letter. Comment down below what letter you want to see next on the channel. After finishing your outline, don't forget to erase all those pencil marks underneath. Now that I have my outlined letter, I'm going to make it pop off the page by adding 1-point perspective 3D. I'm not going into detail, there will be a whole tutorial made on that topic coming soon. But to sum it up in a couple of sentences, basically place a reference point anywhere on your page. Draw lines to that point and then cut the 3D to your desired length and make sure it's consistent all the way around. What I usually like to do after I finish my 3D is add another outline around the outside of the whole letter to create some different line variations. Now I'm just going in with a fine liner and sharpening up all the corners where the lines meet. You can do this part using a pen if you don't own any specific fine liners. To finalize this letter, I'm just going to add some details. This is where you can get creative. The possibilities are endless at this stage. Just make sure not to overdo it. Less is more. I'm just adding a simple bubble background and some drips to the letter. Do you want to see a full tutorial on letter effects? If you have made it all the way until this point in the video, comment the word graffiti in the comment section below. To finish off this letter, I'm just coming in with a gray marker and adding a drop shadow. I like doing this to most of my pieces, as it makes the letters jump off the page even further. And that brings us to the end of the video. Hopefully this tutorial wasn't too hard to follow. Be sure to comment down below if you found this video helpful or if you learned something new. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial.